Morning everyone and happy Thursday. We're already on day 4 of this challenge. It goes so fast every time I do it. But today we're going to talk a little bit about the immune system, because most of us know our symptoms when we start to not feel well. So whether it's a tickle in the back of your throat, or maybe you're a little more tired than usual, you don't feel hungry, or you're sniffling, anything like that, those are usually good signs that we're getting sick. But many people don't know what the signs are for their animals, so I thought we would talk a little bit about that. Morning, Monica. I did do a video on the immune system not that long ago. I believe it was last week. So if you want more in-depth information about this specifically, go check that out, because it does talk about the creation of the immune system, what all the different parts are for, indicators to look for, things like that. But for the animals, essentially the majority of their immune system is created through the antibodies in their mother's milk. So if they are a street dog and they're separated from their mother, or if they're from a puppy mill and they get separated, or anything, actually that works for cats too, any of those things, then they may not have as strong an immune system as we would hope, and they are going to be more prone to sickness. So some of the indicators for pets are usually lethargy, meaning they're tired, they don't feel like eating, they're not as excited about things as they usually are. Sometimes they'll be a little quieter, their ears may not prick up when you come in the room or if somebody else comes over. General just not being interested in what's going on. It's sometimes easy to tell, but again, animals, dogs and cats especially, when they're sick, they tend not to show us, because in the wild, it's seen as a sign of weakness. And usually the sick ones, if it's a bad winter or something like that, the rest of the group will eat them. So unfortunately, in some cases, they really don't want to tell us that they're not feeling well. But in other cases, like Kaya's, as soon as she's not feeling well, she comes up and puts her head on my bed and just stares at me. So she's very aware of when she's not feeling well, and she's not afraid to tell us, because usually she wants an acupressure treatment or something like that. So depends on your animal, but make sure you know what your animal's signs are, because you're more likely to respond more effectively and more quickly if your animal does get sick. But going a little bit into vaccines, just for a minute. Disclaimer, I am not a vet. I do not claim to be a vet. And if you have any questions about this, you should go talk to your holistic vet. But from the research, many holistic vets agree that the current vaccination schedule is too rigorous. Meaning that a lot of the pets are being over-vaccinated and they're getting sick. So if you haven't heard of a titer test essentially takes a vial of blood and they test it for the presence of the antibodies from previous vaccines. And the level of antibodies in the blood can tell you whether or not they actually need or are due for their next round of vaccines. And they have titers for most of the vaccines except for rabies. Rabies there's actually not, and rabies is the only one that's absolutely mandatory every 3 years, because rabies is incurable. Most of the other vaccine-related conditions are curable. Rabies, unfortunately, is not. Monica, and they don't take into account different weights and sizes. Yes, because a lot of them give a similar dose to, say, a Cocker Spaniel and a German Shepherd, even though they're clearly very different weights. Titer testing is great. It is more expensive. Usually when you go for, say, your random puppy vaccines, each one is usually $20 or $30, and there's usually 4 of them. And to do a titer test, which is usually once a year, is $300. So that is something to keep in mind. A lot of pet parents outweigh it in their brain. They're saying, okay, I pay $300 once a year, or I pay expensive vet bills later. Up to you, but that's just providing you with the information. So my question for you today is to find out when your pet last had vaccines and research when they would be due again, and just find out whether or not your current vet does titer testing, because not all vets do. And I specifically picked the vet that I have now because she does do titer testing, because I don't want to go to a vet place where they're forcing my pet to have vaccines that she doesn't need. Again, that's a personal choice, but take the minute and do the little bit of research, because a lot of people don't question it. They go in with their, little tiny puppy and they give them a whole bunch of shots, and then they get sick for a little while, and then usually they're okay, and then every year they come back and do it again, and nobody really questions, is this entirely necessary? Do I need to do this? Why is it currently so frequent? And ask questions to their vet. A lot of people don't. So if your pet has had a titer test, usually your vet will email you that results from that test. And I have Kaya's, so I pulled it up and I looked at it recently. I was like, okay, she's pretty good on all of them, but she is due for her 3-year rabies vaccine in November, which I'm not looking forward to, because last time she had it, she was 6 or 7 months, and she was sick for 3 days after her vaccine. So I know the acupressure points now. I can help her detox faster, but I'm still worried about her getting sick after. But that's really all I wanted to talk about, just to kind of get you thinking about the fact that you have choices. You're allowed to ask these questions to your vet. They should be able to answer your questions. But if you're currently at a vet that does not offer titer testing, then I would highly suggest finding one that does, because in the long run, it will save you a lot of money and a lot of heartbreak. Because currently Kaya only goes once a year for her titer test, and that's it. She has no health issues whatsoever, and she does have the bonus of having me, so I can kind of do acupressure on her, or communicate with her, or do Reiki on her whenever she does have an issue, and her food is up to date, so everything is working well for her. Thanks for the info. Have a great day, Monica. But that's all I have to say. If you do have questions, make sure to talk to your vet, because again, I am not a vet. I don't claim to be a vet. I just want to present you with the fact that you have a choice to be able to voice your concerns or even ask questions. But find out when your pet's last vaccine was. If your pet has ever had a titer test, find those results and just figure out when they're due for their next one, and then talk to your vet, because ultimately it's important to stay on top of it. Usually, see if I can find it. When you get your puppy, you get a little booklet that looks kind of like this, and they track their weight on the inside, and there's their vaccine history when they were puppies. Most of them were before. All these colored ones were before I got her, because she needed her round of puppy vaccines. But usually they'll give you rabies certificates and stuff like that. And yeah, it's good to keep that on hand. Kaya has her own file full of paperwork, so it's good to keep that stuff on hand. If you have any questions, don't feel free to contact me. I was going to say don't hesitate, but it came out. Don't contact me. Have a fabulous rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow for the very last challenge in this 5-day challenge. Again, winners will be announced on Saturday. If I'm on my way to the march and I get distracted, it will be on Sunday. I will see you tomorrow.